What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to the Pop Culture Gamers podcast. And today we're going to talk about an issue that affects all three of the main brands, whether you're a Switch player, an Xbox player, or a PlayStation player. We all have exactly the same problem when it comes to our controllers, and that is potentiometers. Because these pesky things end up breaking, meaning the controller is next to useless because we get stick drift and then we can't use a controller anymore. Particularly vulnerable are these controllers, the Joy-Cons, but also the new consoles also suffer from the same thing. And any controller that has a potentiometer is going to have this if it's an analog controller. And unfortunately, this is exactly where we are. However, there is a solution. Not quite here for the PlayStation and the Xbox, but if you're a PC player, then there is a solution. Or if you're a Nintendo player, and here it is, the Gulikit King Kong 2 Pro controller. This controller has electromagnetic joystick modules rather than the normal traditional potentiometers which are in other controllers. This means there is no stick drift at all. This is compatible with the Switch. It's also compatible with the PC, and I'm led to believe that Gulikit are actually developing something to make it compatible with the Xbox and also the PS5. The packaging is very nice. As you can see, it comes in a very sturdy box and it looks like a really nice piece of kit. Now, this is about £67, £68, something like that, off Amazon, and is a good buy. I have actually had this out. I've already been testing it, and I can honestly say it feels really, really nice to the touch. So, inside the box, here's what we have. We have the controller itself in a nice box. We have a holographic Gulikit sticker. We get the Gulikit, looks more like a catalogue than anything else, but some of the other products that Gulikit actually produce. And here is the key features for this controller. First off, we've got the electromagnetic sticks, which measure the amount of magnetic fields rather than actually a physical lever or anything rubbing against metal. And also we have these long life mechanical buttons, which for some reason they've decided to make feel like membrane buttons, which I don't quite understand, but they do work very nicely. We've also got a lot of other pieces of information in here about some of the other pieces of kit that they've got, including a universal controller charging dock and the Eves Pro controller, the dock for the Switch, and many other things, including the Hall joystick for the Joy-Cons. And there's also obviously a QR code so you can visit the website. There is instructions on how to update the firmware for your controller as well, which I have not done as of yet. And then this is something that you will need to keep hold of, because this is the instruction manual and it is in English as well, but you will need this for this particular page, because there is modes that you can change in terms of the controller. So you can do things like the joystick has no dead zones, which makes it absolutely super sensitive. You can change the sensitivity of the ZL and ZR buttons, which are the triggers. And you can also change the sensitivity settings, generally speaking, for the controller. There's also professional mode on the controller. Then there is also burst mode for rapid fire. There is swapping the A, B and XY buttons around, which you don't need to do on the PC because the games just default to the standard Xbox layout when you go on Steam. There is the vibration force, and you can also share a learning file if you want to, because you can actually do some programming in terms of this as well for keyboard key presses on your controller. So that's another nice thing. You can actually download this from the Gulikit website as well, which I think would be probably a better bet having it on your PC if you want to see that. Then there is this little box, and in here we have one thing. There is nothing else in there, and there's nothing in there. We'll throw that away. And here's the last thing, which is a USB-A to USB-C lead. It doesn't really feel like the best sort of quality. It's not a braided cable or anything like that, and it does feel very stiff. I don't think it's really the best cable for them to have used in terms of this as a controller. I would have liked to have seen a nice braided cable with this, but hey ho. And within here, within this hard shell, which covers the whole controller, this is quite a nice idea because it does actually give you the ability to transport your controller so that you don't end up getting scuff marks from other stuff in your bag and that sort of thing. But if we open this up, here is, after a little bit of wiggling, our actual controller. So in terms of this controller, as you can see, it's very, very similar to the Xbox controller in terms of shape and size. Maybe just a tad narrower, I'm wanting to say, but maybe a little bit higher, just a little bit, not much. You're talking about millimeters at the very most. The buttons are the normal Nintendo layout. These two buttons here act as the select and the start buttons, and then we've got these other controls here which do various things which relate to all of these symbols on this instruction sheet. The D-pad is great for the way it feels. I love the clickiness of these buttons, and these are very, very smooth. The quality of this is basically the same as the Xbox Pro controller, and this just feels, the sticks feel absolutely buttery smooth. We'll just have a quick look at some of the information on Joystick Tester so that you can actually see how great these are. In terms of springiness, I find these to be really quite nice, the way that they come back. If we look at the Xbox controller at the same time, they're effectively the exact same in terms of responsiveness for that sort of like clicking back. There's not really a lot in any of them. They are all very, very similar in the way that they feel, but this is a really nice controller. There's nothing on the back. There is no batteries. This battery will last on a full charge for up to 24 or 5 hours, which is tremendous. It is USB-C. As you can see, there is all of the different modes on here, which is just selectable by pressing this button. And also on this side, this is for your sync, and these lights on here will show which number controller that this one actually relates to for player number, but also this light tells you which mode it is. So mine's currently in PC mode, but there is Switch mode, there is iOS, and there is also Android on there as well. And then finally there's another PC mode for compatibility with older legacy sort of systems as well. But it's all really, really nice in terms of the way that it's laid out. You can actually even replace the stick caps as well if you want to. These just sort of like come off. I'm sure that there'll be aftermarket ones that you'll be able to get hold of, but with no real problems at all there. It does require a little bit of a click to push back on. These buttons feel very, very similar to the sort of Xbox buttons, but obviously a little bit actually, considering that these are actually switches rather than membranes, it feels more membrane-ish than the Xbox controller, which is a feature that they wanted to keep, evidently. I'm not really sure why. These buttons here are membranes, but these ones are all the actual switches as well. And yeah, that's it. The rubber on it here, it feels very nice, very smooth to the touch. I'm quite sure it'll probably mark quite easily, but it's not one that's showing, you know, fingerprint marks immediately that you touch it, which is, I like that. The back is a bit more of a grippy rubber, not much more, but certainly there is a difference in the texture here than what there is here, but it feels really nice in your hands. I kind of feel that maybe it's a bit on, feels with the rubber a bit more on the warmer side rather than the sort of like cold plastic of the Xbox controller or either of these two, to be honest. But nevertheless, I do think it is a really nice controller. It's really, really snappy. It's really responsive. You can actually control it using sort of like gyroscope methods, which is great if you want to play those sort of games as well. Again, this instruction manual, which you can also download, will tell you everything you need to know in terms of turning that on and the level of sensitivity of it, but it's not a mode that I am particularly fond of. The other thing about this as well is it also has an amiibo sensor in it as well, so you can actually hold your amiibo over the controller and it will register that when you're on your Switch, which I must admit I did think that that was a proprietary sort of technology for Nintendo, so I'm quite surprised to see it on a controller. I'm not recalling anywhere that has actually had that feature before, any other controller at all, which is Switch compatible. So it's quite an unusual thing, I think. But anyway, that's the controller itself. Keep an eye out in the future because I will be doing another video which will be adding electromagnetic joystick switches, again from Gulikit, to this beast as well. So because obviously the Steam Deck does have the same sort of pedometers as all of the other controllers, so this is a module kit. This one requires no soldering or anything, so it will be a great kit for you to be able to use, and it's a very easy sort of like drop-in way of doing it. Anyway, let's have a quick look at the responsiveness on this. Okay, so here I am on Hardware Tester, and let's have a look to see just how good these Hall Effect sticks are. Start off, let's have a look at the input. So I'm going to be using two controllers. One is going to be a standard Xbox One controller and the other one is going to be the King Kong 2 Pro. The first one is the King Kong 2. So as we can see, it's nice and responsive, and wherever I go it's resetting back to 0. I'm just letting things just drop back, and as we can see the buttons are all working as well. And as we can see there, the trigger's going for how much pressure I'm putting on, because that's nice and analog. So that's really good on the King Kong 2 Pro. Let's have a look now at the Xbox One controller, which I've been using for a couple of years. And as we can see, there's already drift on this. I haven't actually even touched the sticks and they're not dead on that center point. And they never go back to 0 whenever I do anything. In terms of the buttons, these are all absolutely fine, as you would expect. So obviously this is a bit of a concern because these sticks haven't actually developed stick drift in terms of the gaming, but it's only really because of the dead zone that is on the controller already. So going back to the X input, if I remove that, it should connect via Bluetooth. Okay, so I'm now connected via Bluetooth, and actually now that I'm on here now, it's okay. It must have just been something the way that my computer was when I tried it before, but it just really wasn't working that well. But now this seems to be really nice and responsive in terms of that on Bluetooth. So yeah, I would recommend it for both. This is an excellent controller. Another thing I forgot to mention about this controller as well is that this one will wake your Switch up as well. It's not many third-party ones that do, but this one will wake your Switch up. Unfortunately, it's not compatible at the moment with the Xbox or the PlayStation 5. However, I have heard from the internet that there is plans afoot by Gulikit to make this compatible, whether or not that's through a dongle or another sort of add-on that you might want to get for that. So you could actually use this as a replacement Xbox controller. One of the things I was wondering about doing was maybe switching the buttons around, because I'm going to primarily use this as my main PC controller. Very rarely going to use it on the Switch because I've already got a Pro controller, so there is no point. However, in terms of these, they are actually angled, unfortunately, so it wouldn't be just as simple thing of swapping them out, because there would be at different angles then and it would feel odd. Although I have heard that there is going to be a kit where it's got the buttons reversed around that you can then add in, but it does require you to disassemble 90% of the controller in order to be able to get to these switches. But hey, if that's what you want and you know it bothers you enough, then you can switch these around. There is going to be that option, maybe not now, but in the near future, and I'm sure that there'll be other accessories for replacing stuff on here as well. I've heard some people saying that they don't like the silver. I actually think it looks really quite smart, quite snazzy, as my son would love me saying. But yeah, I really like the controller. It is really responsive. It's well worth a pickup at the cost of a standard controller. And if you're looking for a Pro controller, this is a really good controller for your Nintendo device, and I would definitely recommend it in that respect. Again, like I said, I have had issues over Bluetooth on the PC, but I think that's more my PC rather than the fault of the actual controller itself. Okay, so that's the end of the review. Hope you've enjoyed this. A great controller, definitely recommend it as a pickup. It would really help us out if your mouse would drift over that subscribe button and you click that. Don't forget to like the video as well. Hope you've enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time. Bye now.